Hello and welcome to my channel. Dear friends, as you know that previously I have started lecture series on ecosystem. As a part of that lecture series, today I am going to discuss about structure and composition of ecosystem. Dear friends, if you are new to this channel, kindly subscribe this channel for more such type of lectures. Well, let's talk about structure of ecosystem. Dear friends, by structure we mean the composition of biological community including species number, biomass, life history and distribution in space. A biological community in any ecosystem comprises different things like species number. What is the number of species of a particular biological community? What is their biomass? Their life history? Are they native of this place? Or they are exited from anywhere place? Or their habitat is from elsewhere and they come here from some other places, and distribution in the space. A biological community, the range of a biological community with respect to distribution. By structure of ecosystem we also mean that the quantity and distribution of non-living materials such as nutrients. We have various kinds of nutrients in any ecosystem which remain in the cycling path and transfer from one medium to another medium and get converted in one form to another form, and similarly we have water, etc. Thirdly, the range or gradient of conditions of existence. The range or gradient of conditions of existence is like we have different abiotic things in any ecosystem, like such as temperature, light, humidity, precipitation. All these parameters vary from one ecosystem to another ecosystem. Okay, so from the structural point of view, all ecosystems consist of two following basic components. Number one, biotic, or we can say living components of any ecosystem. Number second, abiotic or non-living components of any ecosystem. Dear friends, have a look on this picture. It represents the components of an ecosystem. It not only represents the components, but this is the basic what ecosystem is. In the previous lecture, where we have defined the ecosystem, it is an interactive system between the abiotic and biotic things, or we have also told that it is the interaction between the living organisms within them and with the interaction with the physical environment. Here, the physical environment consists of the abiotic components, like we have soil, or we can say it's lithosphere, atmosphere, or we can say air, and lithosphere or water. Similarly, under the biotic or living components, we have animals, plants, and decomposers. These decomposers include various tiny microscopic organisms like bacteria, protozoa, molds, etc., which we going to discuss in the ahead. So if you are able to see here, there are the interactions between the abiotic also. There are the interactions between the biotic only, and there is the interaction between the biotic and abiotic, similarly abiotic and biotic, and this all interactive system. There is a constant flow of energy from the sun, and this makes an interactive system, or we can say, as per the Tansley, it is a basic functional unit of life, where therein there is an interaction between the livings and their physical environment, which include the soil, air, or water. Okay, this picture also represents the same, but in the pictorial form. Here is again the complete structure of a complete structure of an ecosystem, which include abiotic components like nutrients, cycles like gases, water, mineral, and it also includes biotic components like living plants, animals, and different kinds of fungi and bacteria which come under the decomposers. And in this interaction there is also a release of heat in different pathways, and the energy which get transferred from one trophic level to another trophic level, and in certain nutrients which remains cyclic from one phase to another phase and can get transferred into one form into another form. And this transformation of the nutrients from one to another, and the transfer and the cyclic pathways, and the transfer of the energy from one trophic level to another trophic, is basically an interactive system between the two different components like biotic and abiotic, and which all comprise an ecosystem. And this is the full-fledged structure of an ecosystem, wherein there are two basic components, and there is any ecosystem where there is not an absence of any one component. In every ecosystem, these two components compose the structure of an ecosystem. Before proceeding, let us talk about the biotic components of an ecosystem. These biotic components comprise broadly three kinds of biotic components are there. First one is producers. These are also called autotrophs or chemoautotrophs. The second one is consumers. These are primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary consumers, and the final is decomposers, or we can say them microorganisms. Producers are autotrophs. Why these are called producers? Because these are those organisms which prepare their own food by using solar energy, like energy which comes from the sun, chlorophyll, which is present in any kind of producer, that is any kind of grass, leaf, or any plant, and inorganic nutrients and water. And this interaction or this reaction is known as photosynthesis, wherein in the presence of the solar energy and chlorophyll or inorganic nutrients, there is a reaction takes place which produces food. That reaction is known as photosynthesis. And the example of the producers or autotrophs of plants, some photosynthetic bacteria, algae, etc. Here are some examples of producers in different ecosystems. These are, if we talk about the aquatic ecosystem, there is algae or other hydrophytes, which represent as the producers of the aquatic ecosystem, which prepare food in aquatic ecosystem by themselves by using solar energy, chlorophyll, inorganic nutrients, and water. Similarly, grasses are producers in the grassland ecosystem. These are again producers their food by using this reaction, or we can shortly say photosynthesis. Trees and shrubs of the forest ecosystem. In a forest, there is plenty number of trees and shrubs, and these represent producers which produce food in a forest ecosystem. In autotrophs, there is also a kind of bacteria, those are known as chemosynthetic bacteria. Chemosynthetic bacteria and carotenoid bearing purple bacteria that also assimilate carbon dioxide with the energy of sun, but only in the presence of organic compounds, also belong to this category, that is producers. These bacteria are usually present in ocean bottoms or any kind of other environments where they produce food by themselves. This is photosynthesis. What we are talking about, a producer, or we can say a plant and grass which produce their own food. How is this photosynthesis occurring? Here is the sun which gives the light, that is the sunlight, and there is the presence of water in a plant or a grass, and chlorophyll in a leaf. Here it is a presentation of a leaf. In leaf there is a chlorophyll which is present in a plant. That chlorophyll traps the light energy and water which plant get absorbed from its roots, and in this reaction what happens, oxygen get released into the air, and the sugar which get produced in this mechanism, it get converted into the starch, and this starch gets stored food in the other parts of the plants. And carbon dioxide, here is the presence of the carbon dioxide that enters into the stomata of the leaf while the chlorophyll is present, and all this reaction is known as photosynthesis. With the help of this photosynthesis, a plant, a grass, or any algae can produce a food which they utilize for themselves, for their growth, maintenance, and transfer to the other trophic levels in any ecosystem. On this slide, here are different kinds of pictures which represent producers, which are the examples of producers in different ecosystems. For example, if we take an example of aquatic ecosystem, there is algae. You might have heard the word algae. This is the picture of the algae which you have observed, which you have seen, and the different lakes, ponds which are floating on the surface of any water body. These greenish mats, these are called algae. These are producers and prepare their own food. Similarly, there are so many macrophytes, so these again represent producers in aquatic ecosystem. As we have already taken example of grasses which represent producers in ecosystem, trees and bushes which are shrubs in forest ecosystem, and we have desert ecosystem where there is indigenous desert plants which act as producers in desert food chains. These are the different kinds of indigenous desert plants which are present in the various deserts and act as producers in that desert ecosystem. It was about producers. Now let's talk about consumers. Consumers are those animals which obtain their food from producers, and these consumers are of different types. Number one, primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary and quaternary consumers. Herbivores, these are those organisms which feed on the plants, also called primary consumers, and the examples is cow, goat, rabbit. Such herbivores, or we can say primary consumers, these are not able to prepare their own food, but they are dependent upon the producers in any ecosystem. What kind of herbivore is there, be it a cow, goat, rabbit, or be it a grasshopper, which these are dependent upon the producers for their food. These herbivores are also known as primary consumers. Then we have another level that is called carnivores, that's meat eaters. These are those organisms which feed on herbivores, known as secondary consumers. So carnivores are also known as secondary consumers, and there is an example like lion, fox, etc. We have third trophic level that is called tertiary consumers. These are those organisms that dependent upon the secondary consumers for food. Tertiary consumers can also be carnivores or omnivores. Dear friends, in these pictures, it represents the different kinds of organisms at different trophic levels. Like, for example, if we talk about the primary consumers or herbivores, these are the examples like cow, deer, parrot, kangaroo, etc. These are primary consumers or herbivores in different ecosystems. Similarly, carnivores, or we can say secondary consumers, these are the pictures of secondary consumers, and these are the omnivores, or we can say tertiary consumers. These they obtain from, they dependent upon the secondary consumers. They also eat meat as well as grasses. General feeders, these are those organisms which feed on both plants and animals. And the final trophic level is quaternary consumers. These are present in some food chains. These organisms prey on tertiary consumers for energy. Furthermore, they are usually at the top of a food chain as they have no natural predators. Here are the examples of the quaternary consumers. This is an interaction, or we can say a food chain in an ecosystem where there is a dependence of primary producers, herbivores and carnivores. How energy get transferred from one level to another. As we have already discussed that plants, or we can say producers in any ecosystem, be it grassland ecosystem, be it forestry ecosystem, or be it aquatic ecosystem. Producers produce their own food by utilizing the sun energy, minerals, water, etc. And herbivores are dependent upon them, because herbivores are carnivores. They can't prepare their own food. These herbivores dependent upon the producers for the food, and the carnivores dependent upon the herbivores for the food. And similarly, there are one more community that is called microorganisms. These are present in our environment in the lithosphere, usually like worms, protozoas, or bacteria. Then all these living organisms, be it a producer, it is a living organism, be it a herbivores, be it a carnivores, or any level, secondary, tertiary, quaternary, then all these organisms get died. And there starts one more thing, that is the decomposition, which get this function of the decomposition is performed by the microorganisms which are present in our soils. Example of an ecosystem, how energy get transferred, or we can say food get transferred from one level to another level. Similarly, here is a sun that gives radiations, and here are the producers. These used to utilize these radiations, and there is also availability of water and other nutrients. All these get converted into food, and then these producers get converted to transfer this food to the herbivores level second. These are dependent upon them. Similarly, tertiary carnivores dependent upon them, and after that, what happens? Decomposition. That is the level 4, where decomposers feed on them and convert their organic matter, what they got during their lives from feeding and being feeding, and convert them into the simple inorganic, then or inorganic, and by this way the cycling of nutrients takes place. Here it is the unidirectional flow of energy, but here it is the cycling of the matter, that what these organisms, or we can say grasses, obtain their food, and then it get back converted into the soil, and the cycle remains going on. Now we will talk about the decompose, or we can say decomposers. They are tiny organisms, includes bacteria and fungi or protozoas, which turn organic compounds of dead plants and animals into inorganic matter, as I have already discussed. Decomposers cause the continual circulation of chemicals within ecosystem or within nutrient cycles. Here are few examples of decomposers, which these are some organisms which act as a decomposers, or here are worms, these also act as decomposers. This is a complete picture or the cycling, how nutrients transfer from one level to another and how it gets converted in different organic matters and microorganisms, how microorganisms are present in our environment and how an ecosystem runs. Well, dear friends, it was all about biotic components. Now let us talk about what are abiotic components and what are included in these abiotic components. As far as abiotic components of an ecosystem is concerned, it is subdivided in three headings. Number 1, inorganic components. Number 2, organic components, and number 3, climatic factors. As far as inorganic components is concerned, the inorganic components of an ecosystem are carbon dioxide, water, nitrogen, calcium, and phosphate. All of these are involved in matter cycles. Those are also known as biogeochemical cycles, like carbon cycle, hydrological cycle, nitrogen cycle, calcium cycle, phosphorus cycle, so on and so forth. Then under the abiotic components, we have one more category. Those are known as organic components. Organic components of an ecosystem are proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, and amino acids. And the final category under the abiotic component is the climatic components. These are temperature, light, soil, etc., precipitation, wind, so on and so forth, or other abiotic components of the ecosystem. These abiotic components remain always, be it inorganic, organic, or climatic factor, they are always always in the interaction with the biotic environment, like with the biotic components, and the interaction of the biotic between them and with their physical environment, like these abiotic components, and such interactions represent as the ecosystem. In these pictures, these represent as the biotic and these are the pictorial representations of biotic and abiotic factors. In this picture, here are some biotic factors like animals, protists, plants, archaea, bacteria, fungi. Here in abiotic, air, salinity, soil, water, light, temperature, mineral, pH, humidity. Similarly, in this picture, here are some biotic and abiotic factors. Basically, these remain interactive with each other and give the representation of an ecosystem, and these are the components of an ecosystem. Thank you for watching this lecture.